did you say they used to have the lawn fetes?
Well, it would have been prior to 1956, because actually when I was married, we had our reception in the garden, and then the next day they broke ground for the parish house. That's what we call it. So it would have been prior to that, from 42 to 56.
Now you said they had classrooms. Was there a school at the church, or was it?
No, actually, you made me think. We did have a preschool, a very lovely preschool, which we don't have now. The woman died, but we've had that, and then we have many youth events in the diocese that our kids are being involved in, and peer ministry training for them, so that when they have the conferences, the peer ministers help to plan and to be there, to be with the high school people. Fortunately, this year we had, I think, 4 kids who went to it was called EYE, the Episcopal Youth Event in Minneapolis, and they were there for quite a while, and there were kids there from all over the United States. It was so exciting for them. So we're reaching out to them. Now, if you're all available Saturday night, we're having our spaghetti dinner at church, and this is to help with the youth. I have to get that in there.
So did they have any programs like that when you were younger, or were you involved in?
Oh, we did. Oh, we had our Gambier summer conferences at Kenyon College, and we had, at that time, they weren't intergenerational. They were like the youth had theirs, and there'd be 200 kids, and the clergy led a lot of the different workshops. And then that continued on. I was very involved in that and was the music director for that, and it became, during the war, we didn't have it, and then my mom, who was very involved in Christian education and so forth, she and a group of people got together and they brought it back in '82. It became intergenerational, and it's history. We're still with it. So it's fun to see families be together, and it's a beautiful setting down there. And Kenyon is where our Episcopal Seminary was, Bexley Hall, for many, many years. And then it was in the late 60s that they changed things. I remember when Mother graduated from Oberlin with her degree in Christian Ed, that was the year the Theologue closed over there, and they merged with Vanderbilt. Kenyon's Bexley Hall merged with Colgate Rochester, so they were trying to get more of an ecumenical setting for the seminaries. But that's kind of gone the other way now, as many things do. And we've also got a branch now of Bexley Hall down in Columbus. So, you know, being a PK, that's preacher's kid, I mean, that's really been so much of my life.
What are the advantages and disadvantages of being the pastor's daughter?
Well, that's a good question. I don't know that I've really given a lot of thought to that. It just was a happy time for me. I never thought that, you know, I was any different than anybody else. I was very proud of my dad, you know, and he was quite a musician, and when we came to Elyria, he had youth coming from all over down to the church for youth fellowship, and they'd sing and play, and a lot of people still talk about that. And so I don't feel, I know that I've given thought many times of my actions and how it would reflect on my father, and I don't feel there was anything wrong with that. And we just had a lot of fun. It was a good thing. Does that answer your question a little bit?
Oh, sure. Sure.
You know, I can't think of too much more. I mean, I was just
Nobody
very proud.
said, "Oh, your skirt is too short,"
No.
or you're staying out too late,
no.
or nothing.
And you know, I think back. We didn't have a lot things. It doesn't matter. I think the things that we had were very important. And our parents were great parents. They encouraged us in our endeavors, and obviously mine was music. So And it was neat because I was very involved at the high school in music, and the choir director was our choir master at St. Andrews. So that was kind of a duel. It was a pleasure, and he really encouraged me a lot too. So.
Do you know the story of how your father came to decide he had a calling to be a minister?
That is a very good question. I would say this. When he was a youngster of 8, and his mom and dad were good singers, and they did some vocals at various churches, Grandma wanted him to have a good music education. So she put him on the streetcar, this was in Youngstown, Ohio, and sent him down to St. John's Episcopal Church, where Frank Fuller was the organist and choir director, and they had the men and boys choir. And he was great, and that's where it started. And the music was, and I hear a lot of people say, I'm really drawn to this because of the music. One of our women priests said, I was not an Episcopalian, but then I had occasion to go, and it was the music that caused me to really think about going into the ministry. Interesting. So, yes, I think that would be the answer to that question.
So did he retire from St. Andrews
He
then?
did. He retired from St. Andrews and had about 5 years before he died. And then my mom lived another 20 years. She was still very active with the Houston Ed. She did stuff on the diocesan level too, so they were very well known in the diocese. And nationally too. Very proud of them.
Do you feel that she always enjoyed being the pastor's
I
wife?
think so. They were a good match. I often think when I look at my uncle, who was, and how Aunt Ruth was so different. She wasn't involved like my mother, but it was perfect too. So they're all gone now, and we miss them. They were great examples to us for lifelong learning.
Was your father's funeral held at St. Andrews?
Yes, it was. And the bishop came out and he gave the homily. And it was a hard time for me because we were just such buds. But I mean, I can still be in church and hear him singing the Alleluias and I'll get teary-eyed, you know. And of course, just this past Sunday, which, you know, we celebrate All Saints Sunday, so we think of those that have passed on. I'm sorry, died. My uncle said people don't pass on. They die. Okay, Arthur. He was funny.
And where did he serve?
He was at Trinity Toledo for 17 years and then went up to Bedford, New York, Westchester County, and had a beautiful, I don't know how many years he was there, but very well loved. So those two Hargate boys made their parents proud, I must say.
So you mentioned the church is very active in the community. Are there any ways, like at the church dinners, that you have volunteered at, or how have you been active in that?
Probably helping financially more than anything. I find with myself, since I'm very busy, I don't need to be everywhere all the time, and I watch that very carefully. I can encourage other people to get involved, but I don't have to be there all the time. And yes, I have gone down. I have helped prepare tacos. We had a great assembly line, and I'm there. I mean, if they're really down and out and need help, then I wouldn't mind stepping in. But my daughter-in-law is very much part of it, and I'm thankful for that. And so let them do their thing.
Do you have like support for missions and missionaries?
Yes, yes. Another thing that I'm kind of backtracking a bit, I like the way our ministerial association in Elyria has met and been very involved, especially with the Methodists, the Congregationalists, and us. We try, for instance, coming up in Thanksgiving, November, will be our service at the Wesleyan Village. We've had it up there now because many of the residents can come in their wheelchairs and so forth. And we have many of the clergy from the Catholic Church, there's about 8 of them, the black churches, and we put a lovely service together. We have combined choirs from the various churches, and it's a very lovely evening, and I like to see that. And then along with that type of thing, we have, in the Episcopal churches, we have an Episcopal church in Lorain and one in Oberlin, and so we just finished up having a combined service this time at Christ Church Oberlin for All Saints Day, and the choirs we combined. And then after Christmas, we'll be at St. Andrew's for lessons and carols, and then their choirs will come. And so we're really trying to encourage people to come together, get to know one another. And when I sometimes ride around the county doing the pastoral care stuff that I do, see how these people travel, how many miles they travel to get to church. And so right now, we're working real hard. I'm doing a course on unbinding the gospel. And a lot of it has to do with that word evangelism, you know, that E word. And it's been a wonderful conversation because people say, I'm not going out and knock on a door. But you know, if people observe you living your life in a Christian way, that's also one way that you can help them to know and invite them to church. And lots of discussion and, you know, what do you feel like when you first walked in the door? Were you feeling that you were being welcomed? And so a lot of that.
What is the pastoral care work that you
Pastoral care,
to?
we always started, I thought, we have many people that aren't able to come to church, even though we have an elevator and so forth, now a better one. I just thought we could have a calling ministry, like maybe once every 2 weeks. How are you? And tell me about things. Letting them know that St. Andrew's cares about them. And then some of us are Eucharistic visitors, which means we are permitted to take the communion to the people. And I had an occasion last week, and it was precious, because part of it is a lot of these people remember me as a little girl. And they kind of get talking about how great things were when my dad was there. Well, that's nice. Just keep it in the walls because we don't need to be. But I like to hear it. And this lady is so sharp and remembers things. And she had a little tea party for my aunt. We went together. And we must have been there 3 hours. But, I mean, I could do that every day. But when I say I don't have time, I'm involved in other things too. But yeah, the pastoral care thing. So there's like the phoning ministry, and then going for visitations to the shut-ins. We get a call from the hospital if somebody is admitted, and they put down their religious affiliation. If it's Episcopal, they'll call and say so and so is here. So we try to get up But I just think there's no reason that people need to be forgotten just because they can't get out. And if they don't have family members that are involved, I always think of the term when I think it was with my dad. He said, "You didn't come to see me when I was in the hospital." And his remark was, "I am as near to you as your telephone." I'll never forget that. Meaning, if nobody called him or the church to let them know, how are you supposed to know? And I've learned through all of this, some people are very private. They don't want a lot of things to be known. So you learn as you go along. I've learned a lot to appreciate them and their wishes.
Is there some part of church, either the church service or a club or some effort the church used to do that doesn't happen any longer that you really miss, that you're sorry it's gone?
What an excellent question. Way back when, and when I give the title now we kind of giggle, it was known as the Girls Friendly Society. And this was a national organization. It was one of the oldest in the world, even before Girl Scouts. And our theme was "Bear ye one another's burdens." And we had probably 4 different groups at the church. And we did a lot of things. We had the Shrove Tuesday pancake suppers, and we would have our aprons, and we would go and serve. And we had a gal yesterday in church who, when we were sharing, can you think of somebody who you would think of as a saint? And the next thing she said, I could just see her mother. She was standing right in front of me. I said, Pam. So she got up and talked about my mom and what she did with GFS. And these gals went on trips out west and served on an Indian reservation one time. This was Pam's wonderful experience. I do miss it. I think it's when they did a lot of changing at the national level, and the monies to help keep these things alive, it took a different turn. And of course, leadership is a big problem. What I find in this day and age, and it goes back to with the kids, and anything you want to kind of do at church, when we had so many people in church back, let me just say the 60s, for an example. Stores weren't open. You didn't have soccer practice on Sunday morning, let alone a game. And this is what we're fighting all the time. I mean, you were in church on Sunday. You and your family came to church. So we try to do as much as we can to overcome that. And in the summer we have a 5 o'clock service, which has been popular, but not during the
5 on Sunday or
5
5 on Saturday.
And then that's just in the summertime. And so, but yes, I miss GFS. Those were great. In fact, one year, was it 1964, I headed up the triennial convention of GFS that we had at Oberlin College. And that was a great summer for me. And we had people even from all over the world to that. So I'm happy for the ones that remember. And every time we see the truck go by, GFS, Gordon Food Service, it said, yay, GFS. Well.
Did you pick the hymns at
the way services? We work it out is I have 3 different books that I work out of. The Choir Master's Handbook, which has all the lessons and everything for each Sunday and additional holy days. And I will go through and select hymns, ones that we particularly know, and then I sit down with the rector or the priest, and then we go over things together. And it all ties in with the lectionary, you know, the New Testament, the Old Testament, the Gospel, and the theme of the day. And it's very nice when people go by and say, I love the hymns today. And I thought, yes.
Do you have a very favorite hymn that you could just play or sing anytime?
Yes, I think I go back to Bach, and I love Jesu Joy of Man's Desiring, and we do have that in the hymnal. And I love to play that. And if I need some extra little fill-in music, you might hear me play that melody. But there's so many good ones. I love, well, I played a funeral last night, and I love For All the Saints Who From Their Labors Rest. That's one I always use. There are a lot of good hymns, though, and a lot of good newish hymns. And I like to introduce a new hymn, sometimes call it the Hymn of the Month plan, where during communion we might have a hymn, and maybe we'll sing it 4 Sundays in a row, and then I hope by the next month, you know, that they really will recognize it. And one of the changes that's happened, which is okay, it has its reasons, is coming up the aisle for communion and not going up to the rail. Now, I miss that, and I know one lady who said, I love the music, but I'm going to come to 8:30 because I like to go to the rail. Well, this is to kind of help the people that have trouble maybe climbing those few steps. And I'm thinking, this doesn't make sense to me because the 8:30 people are older. I would think they would have more trouble climbing the steps. But there's something about bringing the communion to the people. So they come up the aisle, and before they get to the steps, and then the priests are there and they administer communion. Well, one man didn't like it. He said he thought he was in a grocery line. But you see, you can't please everybody. But I think basically, we'll have our worship meeting tonight, and I'll be anxious to see if she has any more feedback on that. reason I don't like it is because then I can't say hi to the people when they go by the organ when they finish communion. Except, probably shouldn't do that.